Welcome to Innovation Leadership. I'm Jess Larson. On this episode, we get to have Mark Murphy. Mark, will you tell us about your books, your podcast, what your firm does, and how you grew it to 2 billion plus? And then I want to hear about the top three things you just told me.
Well, I would say, first of all, Jess, thank you so much for having me on the show. I would start, I always say I grew up dumb and broke in Suffolk, New York. And the firm I now own, I think they hired me in 1985. I think they paid me $1,000 a month, and I'm not even sure that wasn't even a salary. It was a draw against commissions. And the idea to us is that I think that when I came here and then I took over the company shortly thereafter. I always thought we'd be successful. I'd hope we'd make money, or I thought we'd make money. But this was always my vehicle to make other people's lives better. And so the idea, to me, like Ren, the 15th century philosopher, he used to talk about three types of stone cutters. And I think there's three types of stone cutters in every profession. And he said there was a group of stone cutters that could cut stone to feed their family. And there's clearly people like that. And then he said there was another group of stone cutters who were very talented artistic stone cutters, and they did it for the art of it. And then he said there was a third group of stone cutters who thought they were building a temple for God. And I've always tried to, lean towards the third rather than the first two, although I appreciate great artistry. And what we do is we're key business strategists, critical thinkers, financial advisors to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking people. And you know, uh, 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 as I said, been doing this for a long time, and still as excited about it today as I was almost 40 years ago.
That's fun. When you think about how many people would like to grow a firm like yours over that 2 billion AUM and how statistically unlikely that is, what are some of the things you think you've done differently that not everybody else has done?
People always say fall in love with your passion. I fall in love with my talent, and I hire people that are talented. That I always are looking to identify people with unique skill sets. And one of the things that I don't know if you know Kathy Colby or the Colby testing system, but when we hire, in the first maybe 10 years of my career, I would hire these what I thought talented people, and I couldn't figure out why I was winning on some and missing on others. And when I started to do a few things, one was I make everybody take that Colby test so that, I'm not, people don't want to do things they're terrible at, because I think there's three things you basically do. Things you're terrible at or not very good at. It's easy to, nobody wants to do that. But for a lot of people, they're spending a lot of time doing things they're actually good at or competent at, but they're not focusing on their talent or their unique ability. And so we try to make sure that our people are working in excellence and elegance by working as much as they possibly can in their unique ability. And then I was able to meet Gina Wickman and started to read the book Traction about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. We run our business, maybe it's 8 years ago now, on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it just made so much sense to me that, you have to, you have to be not a yes, but a hell yeah to those three questions. GWC, they got to get it, they got to want it, and they got to have capability with proper training. But more importantly, I created my core values. And it's not that they're the right core values, Jess. It's that they're my core values. And I think that if I hire people that get it, want it, have capability, and have my core values, that's the beginnings of a pretty unstoppable team. And then I say the final thing that I think you have to realize is that you can delegate as a CEO a lot of things, but you can't delegate culture. You have to take responsibility for culture and for the folks that are there. And I think that our expression always is good leaders create followers, great leaders create other great leaders. And so I aspire to be a great leader, but as I become a better leader, it's amazing to me how the people around me have gotten smarter. That I've been able to, as and I think that that's my job as a CEO is to own culture and to create leaders in our firm.
So, when you think about that process, there's so many people that pay lip service to that, and then there's some people who like really live it in their bones. Um, when you think about what that looks like practically at your firm, can you give us some examples?
Well, I'll give you an example. Going back to traction, my seven core values. We use the people analyzer, and I rate every new employee and every employee once a year on plus, plus, minus, or minus on our seven core values. And if you have one minus or more than two plus minuses, you probably don't get hired. And if you're there, it's not like we fire you on the spot, but exit visas will be imminent because, I want people that have our core values. They have to believe in what we're doing. And I also think you're absolutely right, Jess. I think you're absolutely right that a lot of this, what I'll call consultant speak, a lot of this kind of that in the beginning, when you grow up dumb and broke like I do, it kind of seems like consultant talk, airy fairy kinds of stuff. When you realize though that if you have to live it, it's got to be in your DNA. Meaning one of the things on our core values is like I had something in our core value that I said emotional fitness is very, very important. Like that's one of our core values. You have to be emotionally fit to work in our firm. And the idea is I was bringing out some examples of some people in our firm that I thought were not exhibiting emotional fitness all the time. And so I said to him, this isn't aspirational, our core values. This has to be in our DNA. So I want to take that off our core values unless we can flip this around and we can get everybody to be emotionally fit, maybe not 100% of the time, but at least ivory soap it, 99 and 44 one hundredths or, something like that. So, so that's where I think it's like the same thing. It's like, I've always had trouble with my weight. I'm like an accordion. I'm super fit and super lean. And, I've got, if you go to my closet here, it's like going to a men's clothing store. There's pants in every size. And, I know what I need to do. I know how I need to eat. I know how I need to move my body to be super lean. And I also know when that's not happening, what happens to my waistline, and I think it's the same thing there. If you give lip service to these aspirational things, you're going to get the result that you don't want.
Yeah. By the way, on the Colby, do you know what your numbers are by chance, or what you're strong at, or what you're?
Yeah. 3-3-10-3. I'm a 10 quick start, and I'm as far as I'm going to be a 0-0-10-3, but I'm a 3-3-10-3. So I'm a 10 on quick start.
Yeah.
So to people that don't follow that, I am I prize people that are fact finders, and follow through people, and that I make promises all day and stay very big picture and hopefully visionary. But I need to make sure that every promise I make gets executed in elegance and excellence. And it's not going to be me that does it.
That's so fun. I think I'm like, I could be off on this, but I think I'm like 6, 0, or negative 9, and like I don't know, a 2 or something.
Oh, so yeah, we're without you're similar to me with a little bit more data, a little fact finding. I think that's awesome. Again, as people listening, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just you want to put people in the best place to succeed.
Yeah. Question for you. You know, 1,000 interviews, 1,000 episodes of this later. I mean, I've had just an absurd number of people who are high quick starts. I mean, like an overwhelming number, right, of founders who
Right.
make it to the billion mark or in the hundreds of millions, have a huge amount of quick start. When you think about like what's the second number, the blue one on Colby? What's that one called?
I should I
It's like
should know that.
we'll just
I'm
call
drawing
them
a
the
blank.
organized
I
people.
think I think it's I think it's fact finder, and the other is follow through. I
Yeah.
believe follow through. I think is the
Okay.
second one.
So
Yeah.
in my experience, really high quick starts drive those people absolutely nuts. And yet the organization absolutely needs people like that, where it's like the visionary stirred up the big mess, and you got to have the integrator, you got to have the high follow through to like, get everything actually on the calendar and check, do the daily monitoring of checking up and stuff like that. And when you think about like how great it is to cover both part of the spectrums, but how much opportunity there is for friction there. What advice do you have for other visionaries or other high quick starts as they think about, being that crazy ADHD entrepreneur driving their team nuts, and yet we need everybody?
I think you have to do this. I think you have to. I think patience is the key, which most entrepreneurs do not have. And I think that if my dream would be to find somebody that could take it up to even another level if I could. But I think for most entrepreneurs, if you can get people that are 80 or 85% of you, or people, finding people that are going to have a bigger vision than you, it'd be great to have, but I don't think you should be counting on that. And I think one of the things is that, what we try to do is you have to accept people are going to make mistakes, and you have to make them, hopefully, you put them in this following category. Hopefully the mistakes are small. Hopefully you don't repeat the mistake and you learn from it using it as a learning experience. I never give people a problem if they make a hustle mistake, but there's a reign of terror in my firm if you make a lazy mistake. And I think there's something really simple. I think people are really forgiving for the most part. And so the idea is if you make a mistake, Don't try to cover it up. Don't try to make an excuse. Don't try to do anything. You apologize, you clean up your mess, and you make sure it never happens again. And um, I think that's the impetus of that. And I think that part of it is the expression is one of my favorite expressions that I have to repeat to myself again and again and again is the good ones tell, the great ones ask. You never you have to I have to force myself, like it takes all the will in my to do that. It also takes a lot of will to be able to not come at people but come from underneath them and lift them up. And I also say, if you can bleep this out if you want, I'll use an appropriate word, but you can hold people accountable without being a dick. You know, you can, you don't have to be a jerk. I should use the word jerk. You don't have to be a jerk to hold people accountable, and make it about them and make it about the behavior. In terms of what you need them to do to be successful here. And I find myself actually pretty good at firing people. I hate to do it. I don't like doing it, but I think there's a kindness, or there's almost a cruelty to keep somebody who's not really enjoying and great at what they're doing, and keep them in your firm for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years, where they're doing it just for the paycheck and not because they have a true passion for what you're doing or true enjoyment of what you're doing. And I think that, it's kind to let them go, assuming they haven't done anything criminal or, untawdry or tawdry or something like that to somebody, assuming it just didn't work out, and be there and try to help them with the next job. Try to be there. Not everybody wants to stay in touch with you after you've fired them, but a lot of people, I still have great relationships with people that work for me because they knew it came from a place of caring about them. And why would you want to be in a place where the owner of the company wasn't really happy with your performance and you weren't really happy being there? What kind of marriage is that? I think that's a horrible thing. But they're also they're also good people, or you wouldn't have hired them for the most part. So I think it's sort of my responsibility to open up my network and, the folks I know, to try to help them get to a place that would allow them to be even more successful.
Yeah, that's great. Um, when you think about the ultra high net worth clients out there and how many folks would like to either get their first one or increase their percentage of them as clients, um, in your mind, what are some of the best practices when it comes to people with that background, those resources, that lifestyle that maybe not every CEO understands?
Um, well, first of all, I have a fourth book coming out, hopefully sometime next year, called The Pyramid to Create Multi Generational Wealth, where we put a step by step plan in place, literally a cookbook of exactly how to do it. Um, and I used to think when I was younger, just that creating multi generational wealth was enough. But we're only a couple of months past the holidays, and I got to see one of my favorite movies around Christmas time. It's a Wonderful Life. The Christmas holiday time classic. And Mr. Potter had multi generational wealth, but nobody wanted to be Mr. Potter. And so I think that the idea is it's got to be not only multi generational wealth, but it's got to be a life by design. And I mean, when you talk to an entrepreneur, if you want to, I would say one of my, green flags or red flags to see if you're an entrepreneur or not is to say, when people all talk to you about work life balance, an entrepreneur kind of cocks their head sideways like your dog when they don't understand and says, "What do you mean work life balance? I just have a life. I go from one thing I love or to something I love more to something I love more than that. And I'm aspiring to create a life that's so wonderful that I never have to retire from it, much less ever take a vacation from it, because I'm just going from one thing I love to the next. So if you have both multi generational wealth and a life by design, I think that makes sense. And the idea is that's been our secret weapon. The other thing too is that I think that the when you get into that ultra high net worth market, trust is always a thing at every level, but it becomes even more of a trust. But I think that there's an awful lot of people that are giving advice. Like, as an example, um, like you talk about like the financial advice that's like for the masses, like who am I thinking about? Like a Susie Ormond or a Dave Ramsey or one of those guys. I think if you're making $40,000 a year, and or $60,000 a year, just some basic stuff about not getting in debt and getting a few bucks away so you get the kids to college and maybe have a reasonable retirement. where you can drink domestic beer instead of imported beer and not live, hope you don't live too long, and you know, go to early bird specials and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's, for most people, that's an aspiration for people that are, let's call it, the masses. But I think when you're dealing with folks like that, it's also being able to find what their true dharma is, meaning, the idea is that everybody wants to grow their income, everybody wants to grow their business, or I think most do. A lot of times it's freedom of time. Even people that are very, very successful, very wealthy, they haven't found freedom of time. A lot of people don't have freedom of relationships, meaning that they're not spending enough time with the people they choose to. They made all the money in the world, but they don't get to see their kids, or they don't get to see their buddies from college because they're too busy to go to the reunion because they had some other thing. But I think it's more like freedom of purpose, because when you get to that place, one of my favorite, and I'm paraphrasing it, so I'm not quoting Eckhart Tolle um, directly, but he says something to the effect of there's two suitcases you have, and there's one suitcase that is the egoic things. I was the president of this organization, or I was the CEO of that, or I made 100 million, or I made 1 billion, or I made this, or I made that, or the other thing, or I was honored at the boys club, or whatever the deal is. And he says you can't take that with you. But he says there's another suitcase that says, when you realize that who you are is all you've got, you can decide the kind of person you want to be. And so the idea is, I think that that's universal, but it becomes for those ultra high net worth people, you want to sit there. The other thing advice I would give, because by the way, you ask great questions, Jess. So I hope I'm not filibustering your answer, because I find your questions, it's getting me excited. But I find that one of the things I did about 20 years ago is I was trying to do exactly what you said. I was trying to say, well, who's our top 50 clients, and how do I clone those? Because I obviously like more of them. Like you said, everybody like to grow their best customers or patients or clients better. And I found, so I sort of found some commonalities. I found that they were generally big. They were generally had big vision, big thinkers. They were generally very loyal. They generally reciprocated. They generally wanted to be not in a transactional but a transformational relationship. I could probably think of like 8 or 9 things that were mostly common to all of our best clients. And not not being too bright, I couldn't figure out what to do with that for a couple of years, and it kind of then hit me where I said, well, that's who we are. And then what I realized, it was the law of attraction, that I'm not. Our firm wasn't attracting people that wanted to be in transactional relationships. I don't do transactions very well. I do transformation, or I'm not interested in doing. They would find another firm that was just about the buy and the sell, or the same relationship I have with my cable company, or my 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 public utility, you know. And so I think that the idea is that I think ultimately that those were the differentiations. So all of a sudden in that world, I started to attract people that wanted to make a difference in the world. And then, for me, my favorite word right now, my favorite expression used to be narrow and deep, but that's a long time ago. It's now collaboration. And so the idea is that it's not only affects how you grow your business, to answer your question, but if, let's say, what I'd like to do is, if I could positively impact the lives of 100 million people, I'm one person, and I'll try till the day I die to help as many people as I can. But having said that, is the only way that I can even approach that, or even think about that as a possibility, is if I collaborate with great people like you, and be able to collaborate where 1 + 1 = 7, or we have a like mind community where we're challenging each other to create something that doesn't exist right now, or to do something that hasn't been done, or something where we feel so we've had such purpose or such joy. As my Jewish friends say, in the mitzvah, the gift is in the mitzvah, the gift is in the giving. And so when you're around that kind of community, it makes a difference. And so those are the kind of people we attract. And you know that also makes my life very joyous, because I'm around great people like that.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it makes so much logical sense. A question about the community side. I think I think I could spend all day, every day making new friends. Like not do any business. So just like it's all in the future. It's all like let's make friendship. I'm sure something will be great in the future. When you think about, you know, as you become more successful, there's endless things. You start getting invited to more things than one person could go to. You get invited to join different peer-to-peer groups, different networks, different charitable organizations, different community organizations. When you think about the time in your life when the invitations started to exceed what was reasonable, thinking about your responsibilities to the here and now for the organization, what was your decision tree like? Of like, you know what, I am going to help this university, and even though that's a great cause, I'm not going to join the board of that charity, or some of these kind of things. What did that look like for you?
I think the perfect thing is when you have the kind of network that I have, you're invited to a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a christening, an anniversary party, multiple. That's all you do all day, every day. And so I sort of, I'll send a very generous gift. But I generally like, as an example, my kids were young and the kids were, there were sweet 16 parties, or bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs or other things. My kids would go. Um, but I would only go if I was close to the kid in the family. If I was very close to the family, I would go. And maybe if I coached the kid in basketball or something like that, I would go. But for the most part, I'd send a very nice gift and just politely decline because you can't do that. And I think the other part of that thing is I would look at it. I never look at it. I never attach to the outcome. Meaning, if I join a board, and I belong to a lot of boards, mostly private equity boards, but a lot of, like I'm involved with Indiana University right now, which I'm just enjoying the time being on the National Varsity Club board because I'm very, very passionate about sports and very passionate about Indiana, the university and the sports programs. And, I find myself, I always refer to myself as a New Yorker with Midwestern sensibilities, that I like to spend time in Bloomington, Indiana, because I spent most of my adult life in New York, in Manhattan. And so I'd say the people in Indiana, why I feel beautiful when I come to Bloomington is the people in Bloomington are not nice. They are truly kind, and I love the kindness in it that I don't always get in New York. And although I love the New Yorkers as well, but it is, and I am a New Yorker. But I think it's the part where you said, would I be joining this board if there was nothing in it? Meaning, if there was no, did I do this because I thought it was a cool place to be, or did I do it because I thought there was something you get out of it, or did I do this for what reason? And and I think that the hard part, because in the beginning you're saying want to say yes to everything when you're first start out, and I think you have to learn that no is a complete sentence, and you have to just be able to cut it off right away. And I think it's hard to do. It's a process that's learning. I'm getting better at it, but I could still be better at it because my chief of staff, Maureen Motherway, she and my chief operations officer have interventions with me about every other week about why did you say yes to this, why did you say yes to that, you know, and then I'm yelling at them and I'm too busy and I have no time. So you could tell I haven't mastered that trick yet. Maybe with your advice and help, Jess, I could get even better at it.
Um, we could go to Overscheduled Anonymous together. We could learn. So, when you think about how you grew up, what advantages do you think? So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you grew up, and then what advantages do you think it gave you for your career?
Um, First of all, we didn't know we didn't have any money. Nobody told us. We thought we were doing just fine. We didn't realize we were poor. Um, but the thing is that um, I appreciate for my parents who built out about in '92 during, not from COVID but during COVID, um, um, was the fact that um, they instilled a lot of confidence in me. Meaning, I don't know what happened. I don't think I came out of the womb that way, but always had a mindset that if I made up my mind to do something, it was either going to happen hard or it was going to happen easy, but it was going to happen. I would do whatever I had to do to do that, or or die trying. And so I think that there was something that was instilled in me for that. And I think the second is my parents were highly ethical. There was no right way to do the wrong thing. I and I think that served me very, very well in that piece. But I also, my dad had a heart attack when he was 47, and it was Christmas Day, my senior year of high school, and the money dried up totally. And so one of the reasons I'm so proud of my time at Indiana and continues to support the university 40 years later, or 45 years later, was that Notre Dame was, as every good Irish Catholic kid wanted to go to Notre Dame. I think back then it was 13,000 a year. Indiana was six, and I think I got some money for SAT scores, so I could afford to work my way in as a with jobs to pay my tuition and pay my way through. And so I always appreciated that great experience I had, and I had a lot of fun, and was there. But the thing that I also learned from it as well was I saw my father get knocked down, and he lived to 91 or two. He was almost 92 when he died. So if he had it at 47, that was 45 years he lived after he had this heart attack. But he was never the same. He never came back, and he kind of never got up off the canvas. And so, as much as I love my parents and I respect them and love them, the lesson I learned that was not the fun lesson was you're going to get knocked down in life. You just have to get up one more time than you get knocked down. So I just view myself as if you said to me, if there's one word to describe you, I would say it's indefatigable. Meaning, if you get knocked me down, I'll get up. And if you knock me down, I'll get up again. I just have to keep getting up one more time. And it was a hard lesson to I learned as a child, but that's one of the things I took away. I was not going to let anybody to beat me. I was not going to allow anything to stand in my way of being able to do that. And I don't know if we didn't if we didn't have that growing up, if I would have if I would have learned that lesson.
Makes me think of one of my favorite quotes of all time. I think it was Winston Churchill. I guess I should find out. But it talked about the idea of success coming from being able to go from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm.
But Churchill has some of the best stuff. That's a great. What's his other one? Something about I can't wordsmith it, but you know, if you're a fool, but if you please be quiet, so you're the only one who knows you how dumb you are. He has some wordsmiths that great. I can't. It's not coming to me right now, but he's got half a dozen quotes that are as good as Yogi Berra's. So
That's a high
yeah.
bar.
So yeah.
Um, well, what's one of the biggest career, business accomplishments that was the most fulfilling for you?
Um, you know, it, I never think about the money. Um, I think about the impact I made on the lives of the people we touch. Like I think go back to the piece is like you go, hey, because we've created there's hundreds of thousands of people that have jobs that have educated children and paid mortgages and contribute to their community because of what we've created and what we've helped other people create. And the fact that it's the relationships that you don't remember, you just remember the people that came in your life and the folks that helped you. I mean, I just don't, for the life of me, see how the younger generation wants to do everything by just texting each other on the phone. I think the next thing I hear, I'm going to be invited to a wedding over Zoom. Where the bride and groom aren't even in the same room. They're she's in East Fungwe and he's in West Fungwe, and that's how they're going to get married. Um, I just think that the memorable piece is the joy of being able to meet, not only a lot of rich and famous people, but meeting people from all stripes, all walks of life, and being able to learn and pick up something from somebody, and just enjoying the process and the journey of going through people. Like I've done what I've done. I always say, Malcolm Gladwell says you need 10,000 hours to become, an expert or proficient or master something. I think I've got about 130,000 hours in my core business. And I think today is like a fresh day every day. It doesn't seem like a job. Like like today, we don't know each other before today, and I hope we get to spend some more time after this podcast together. But the idea to me, I was excited to meet you today. I'm not talking in a Pollyannish way, but the idea is, it's always, the only way you can learn is to meet really smart, interesting people and to hear what they're doing and listen to what they're saying.
Um, I will say, it does. I, I'm not surprised you become a podcaster. You're obviously so interested in people. By the way, will you tell people, the podcast, the names of the books, where they can listen, where they can buy them?
Uh, well, we had three bestsellers. The one that hit number one on Amazon last year was called The Ultimate Investment. In fact, if anyone would want a copy, they can email us at books@northeastprivate.com, and we'll send you out an autographed copy if you'd like. Or you could certainly get it at Amazon or any one of the big booksellers, Books A Million. I
And
mean,
what's the
they're all
premise of that
over.
one?
it was to help people to understand how wealth is created. That as I've said for I think ultimately that if I cut down everything into one paragraph soundbite is the best investments entrepreneurial thinking people make is when they invest in themselves. And if you only have $1 to invest, I wouldn't put it in a stock market or real estate or in insurance or in the bank or anything like that. I'd invest it either in my business or some other operating company. And if I don't have a company, I'd invest it in myself, whether that be education or training or building a network or leadership or something that would help you to get ready for the job that you hope to, or the job or the opportunity you hope to have going forward. And I think that, David Letterman has his stupid trick, pet trick, or his unique ability, or his superpower. My superpower is seeing where people are, but just believing in them and hoping that they, believing in what they could be. And you have to see people where they are because it's ridiculous to see things through rose-colored glasses and not see people accurately, but also see people's their potential. And maybe playing your small role at helping them get there bigger, faster, more efficiently. And I would also say to myself, like you go back, you were asking me questions about growing up, is I think the thing that really makes a difference in people's lives is people just need somebody to believe in them. If you're lucky enough to have like one person believe in you, much less two or three or four or five or six, it it is like turbocharged fuel to help you have a belief system and feel confident being yourself. And it's I try my best not to ruin anybody's day unless they deserve it. If they do deserve it, then I do try to ruin it, but it's very rare. I try to find myself catching people doing great things or good things, or just being kind to people, because it's amazing to me how just some little subtle things, even whether you're very close to them or even a complete stranger or everything in between, how just something kind can just change how the dynamic of how you operate not only that day, but for many days going forward. And I just there's a great joy in being able to do that uh, going forward. So I go back and I think of, some of the various people in my life. I started with my mom, going all the way to, some, business mentors that I had or some friends that I really learned from and go, wow, how fortunate am I? I've got these really incredible people who believe that I could be successful, or I could be something, or I could do something. And so I try to do that for other people when I can.
I love that philosophy. There's a woman who kind of changed my life recently. Like I used to think about myself as like a really good connector, and I could count how many people I've introduced in a non-transactional way where there's nothing for me and whatever. And I met this woman, a friend who's a real connector from Austin, Weston Woodward. He's like, "Oh, you got to meet this woman, Jennifer Hill." So we have this call, and it's fine. We had a follow up call, and we were really able to like talk a little bit more about what's important. And she proceeded to open up her Rolodex and just give me introduction after introduction after introduction, completely non-transactional and like incredibly interesting people. This heart doctor who invented robotic heart surgery, but now has a huge real estate portfolio. But like, I mean, just not like it wasn't like the dregs of her Rolodex. Do you know, like she was risking social capital on me repeatedly in the non-transactional way. And I was like, wow, I need to up my game. Like this was so like fun and encouraging and life building for me. And it just like given with no strings attached. I was like, that's like the bar has been raised. You know what I mean? And it's funny as you talked about that kindness. Like I literally had a call this morning with one of my co-founders who kind of runs our luxury vacation home business together, and talking about like, I think honestly one of the best things I can do for anybody is actually free, which is like introduce them to somebody they actually want to know. Like better than gifts, better than other things. Like that human to human connection with the right human can be just such an unlock for people. And the thing is like you could say there's nothing in it for me. I get such good feelings out of it. I'm totally getting paid for this, because of how it makes me feel to be generous.
It's but that's to me that's the great joy. And so many people either don't want to do it or can't do it or afraid to do it. So it is being as my friend David Kirschenbaum, he on his business card, his title is connector in chief. But I think that that all of us at the very best of us, that's what we are. Is we're multipliers. We're people that not only create abundance for ourselves, but create abundance for the people around us.
Well, and
That's
I think there's this aspect of like, you don't want to be silly. You don't want to make introductions that are inappropriate. People who are private, you don't want to go handing out their contact info. I mean, I don't mean do something unwise, right? Um, and but I think like, I don't know if it's human survival or just scarcity in society, but like there's a whole bunch of things to tempt us to be like, well, I don't want to, I don't want to give that contact away. Like, what if they do business? What if they do business without me? What if they use up the ask that I could have had? Like there's all these like selfish impulses that can come to mind that when you think about it for a minute, it's like it could even be true, some of them. But a little bit of thinking about it later, and you're like, it's worth it. It's worth the risk. It's worth the risk that I used up my one ask and made somebody else's life infinitely better because there's a million people around here. And the truth is, it doesn't. If you make a great introduction, people just love you for it.
like here's how I would introduce you as an example. This is how I would introduce you to my network. Would be there's generally two things. It's about communication with people. So when you sit down with people and you say, "Hey Joe, hey Susie, I know you've been looking at some luxury homes. I know you own 3 homes of your own, but you always like to spend a month in Italy, or you like to spend 3 weeks in Aspen, or in Vale or something like that, or whatever your jam is." And I said to him, I met this guy. I was on his podcast. I really like this guy. Really smart. He's got a really sharp business. I have not worked with him personally yet, and I don't have people working with him, but I really like his vibe. I like what he's doing. I think he's got a great concept. I'd like to put the two of you together because you're looking for that house in Italy, and he's got something that might fit the bill with this. Go do it. And I've said to him exactly what it is. That's exactly where our relationship is right now, as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 years from now. I'm actually a client of Jess's. I've had a dozen clients that are now members of his buying group, and I'll put my reputation on the line for him because I've introduced him to 12 people, and he's 14 for 12. You know, he
I love
and you're
that
gonna love working
because
with him. The guy's just
I
a
love
great
the
guy.
honesty. I love the precision. I love the
Yeah.
appropriateness of it. Of like, I mean, I think it would be great to say like, everything will always work out every time, and you can introduce everyone with abandon every time, and this is not real life, you know. And yet, the honesty, the accuracy, with the optimism is really all that's needed, right?
Oh, the other thing is the under promising over delivery thing. Like I'll say when something's not a perfect science, like I introduce a lot of retained search firms to find executives for our clients, or if they're in the healthcare profession, maybe doctors or other things. And I say to them, it's not a perfect science. It's expensive. And I said, by the way, let's use the medical field. There are more dentists jobs out there than good dentists. That's the reason why they have a job. So it's not a perfect science. But I've said, hey, I've worked with them, this firm, 100 times, and about 85% of the time they've knocked it out of the park. The other 15% have been, we've not gotten the desired results. So buyer beware. It's far from a perfect science. Or I love my banker friends who say, this is a slam dunk. It'll be done in 30 days. It's going to be done in 60. I'll tell them, it's going to be 90 days and you're going to feel like you've delivered a baby by the end of it. When they do it their way, it's done in 60 days either way. The banker is disappointed them because he said it would be done in 30, and I've said it would be a horrible experience, and it was done in 60. He said, "I wasn't that bad." I think part of it's the expectations that you set. And I think some people that try to get the deal or to try to be important or try to do those other things are not communicating there because y- you know, it's like sometimes I get a kick with some of the people I work with. They go, "How do you know that information?" I go, "I'm not a mind reader. I just asked the guy. I asked the question. He gave me the answer." I was like, what are you talking? What? How would I have known that information unless I asked him and he told me, boom, boom, boom. Like it doesn't seem that hard. Like I think like, why would you not ask the guy the question? You're supposed to guess. you know, I, I don't. I always steal from the medical profession there too. I always say diagnosis without examination is malpractice. It's that way in medicine, it's that way in finance and every other business as well.
That's great. I think one of the favorite things that you said today is I'm talking about this idea of like getting back off the getting back up off the mats one more time than you get sent to them. And there's a lot of motivation books and motivation Instagram and social media, and there's a lot of grandiose statements that get tossed around. Um, and I think I loved the simplicity of that. I like really like boiling it down to just need to get up one more time than I got knocked down. And it's so tangible. Can you talk to us about, one of the toughest times you got sent to the mats and what that was like to pick
I
yourself back
remember,
up?
I told you I started with $1,000 a month draw in 1985. And uh, my first couple of years, because, when you're a 22-year-old guy in the financial services world, um, you have like lunch and a haircut in your appointment book. Nobody wants to see you. The billionaires were not lined up to do business with 22-year-old or 23-year-old Mark Murphy. And I always say the first 3 or 4 years in that this profession is about the closest thing to death you'll ever experience. To be there, and I came this close to failing out. And I remember going home Labor Day of 1988. So I was in the business for about 2.5 years, and I was like $20,000 in credit card debt. You know, I get a kick that I got the first Black American Express card because they almost took my card away from me because I couldn't pay the bill in 1987. And the idea was that I just went home Labor Day my year, and I said I'm going to give this to the end of the year. I'm smart. I've got an education. I'm marketable. I'm going to do something else if this doesn't work. And I was just maniacal for the next 4 months. And I think over the next 4 months of the year, it sounds like ridiculous numbers now, $20,000 in debt or something. But back then, that was like, it could have been $1 trillion, back then. And I think the last 4 months of the year, I made $127,000 and never looked back. And it turned back from there. But it didn't change until I was really willing to look in the mirror and say, what am I willing to do that I'm not doing now to have what I don't have? And then as I started to change what I did and the way I approached it and my mental attitude and what I was willing to do, all of a sudden the right people started showing up in my life. And all these people, I got to meet this guy who did this for me, and that woman who did that for me, and this other person who did the other thing for me. And then all of a sudden, like the pieces started to all come together, and that was the beginning of what we've created today.
You know,
In fact, I don't want, I don't want to get sad. I'm living through a lot of bad memories with you, Jess. But yeah, I'm actually kidding. I'm actually proud of that because, at the end of the day, when you stare down anything, you got two choices. When you get to that roadblock, it goes back to the hard. The hard question. It's hard to do those things and make those breakthroughs in whatever you're doing. Um, But to me, that's the easy hard. The hard is not being able to have the house you want, not be able to tell your kids they can have the piano or the soccer lessons, not being able to go on vacation, not being able to have financial security, not be able to help other people, not being able to do a lot of other things. So the choice to me is always simple. And but ultimately, I think you say to people is, I can't want it more than you. Your spouse can't want it more than you. You can't do it for your kids. You have to do it for yourself. You have to look in the mirror and decide, is this who I am? Is this what I want people saying about me? Is this is you know am I the am I that person, or am I better than that? And then if you decide you've got the focus and the discipline, the fire in the belly, I'll do anything I can, in my power to help you.
and maybe you don't recall, but do you have any sense of what like your mental self-talk was at that point? You given this 4 month do or die deadline.
I would say the two words were no regrets. Is that the mental outlook was, I'm going to leave everything I have on the table. And whatever happens, happens, but it's not going to be because I didn't try. It's not going to be because we didn't give it. I'm not going to look back and go, oh, I should have done this. I could have done this. I should have done that. It's funny. If you're really getting psychologically involved, this one of the most important parts of my life is I told you I always had trouble with my weight. So I think I was a pretty good athlete. I was a pretty good basketball player. I tried out for the freshman basketball team, which a lot of people make the freshman basketball team. And I was probably about 5'4", about 232 pounds. But I thought I was certainly one of the 10 best players, and I think they kept 20, and I made the cut. I did make that. I was cut. And, most people just go, oh, that's it. But what I started to do is I started to take my health a little more serious. That was my 13 or 14 years old. And I grew a little bit. And by the time I was a sophomore, I was running. I joined the cross country team. So I was running like crazy. I was working out like crazy. And I was like 5'9" and about 195 pounds. And I tried out for the JV basketball team, and I made the team. I think if there was 15 guys on the team, I probably was the number 14 guy on the team. When there's 43 seconds left and you're down by 30 points, I would get in the game. I didn't probably see any meaningful time in the games. Um, but I just kept working. I kept working harder than anybody every day. I just kept working and working and working on my body, on my shot, on my the psychology. I would always pride myself on covering the toughest guy on the other team, making sure that he would not get to the spot on the floor he wanted. I would just try to outthink the person because my mind was strong. And by the time I was a senior, I was 6'2" and 165 pounds, and I played point guard. And I never started a game in school until I was a senior in high school. And the other thing that came out of that is I could see that I could do it, that I didn't give up, and I had this great experience, being playing basketball in high school. But that wasn't the most powerful thing, Jess. The most powerful thing is that there were people on our team. One of our center played in the NBA for a brief period of time. There were people. I think on the JV team was Walt Weiss, was the All-Star shortstop, six-time All-Star shortstop of the Oakland A's. The other shooting guard, Rich John Louis, won a national championship as a running back at Clemson in football. And all these guys played, sports in college. And the idea is that my vertical jump, even at 6'2", was about 3 inches. And the idea is that I had gotten every ounce of the ability out of my basketball. I used every tool I had to outthink people, to outwork, to out hustle, to be in better shape than everybody, to do whatever I could. I was a pretty good player, not a great player, but a good player. And the idea is that the big powerful message from that wasn't that. The real message was I realized I was not competing against other people. I was competing against myself. And so I was going to be the best version of myself that I could be. And that way I could be a cheerleader for you. So if something good happens to me, Jess, I want something great happen to you. If I have $1, I hope you have $100 because I'm not competing against you. If I've done the very best I can, well, then why can't I be totally present for you? And so that was the super big takeaway from that experience. Not the experience of, oh, I can do it. It was the experience of, then who could I become as a result of this?
I love that story. I think about, as humans, we're herd animals or something, right? Like we're so dialed into the opinions of the people around us, and there's so many opportunities for comparison. And society, if you're got to compare yourself, don't worry, society will ask you to in about 5 more minutes from now. Like there's just constant, right? And yet, you think about a career, you think about a business life, you think about being an investment fund manager or something. Like over time, as things change, as things progress, like that crowd changes. You know, very like so often the people we're spending a lot of time with 15 years ago were not, things have changed for them, things changed for us. It's a different crowd now. And they maybe are just as judgy, or we perceive them as being judgy, or we're concerned that maybe they're judging us, whatever. But the real thing is they think they're on trial. They think we're judging them. They're trying to get their case stamped approved, right? And I had the good fortune. I was doing competitive judo my teenage years, martial arts, all my growing up years. But my brother and best friend were track runners, and they genuinely believed personal best was more important than winning any given race or not. Like if they won a race but they didn't PB, or they didn't win a race but they did PB, like the PB, like it was genuinely what mattered to them. And you think about that, like for 15 years, I ran a charity that combats child trafficking called Child Rescue Association, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
unfortunately, my mother-in-law is a survivor of trafficking. She was the fourth generation in their family in Santa Monica,
Oh,
California, and
wow.
just
Wow.
broke
That's
the cycle
crazy.
for my wife. I mean, she's just such a hero. Um, and they will always be bigger charities than us. Like, no matter how big you get, I don't know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is still bigger or whatever, right? But
Yeah,
it's like, if you can start to set, like, I love what you said, because I'm thinking about like for our own company, for our charity, for these things of like, what's my PB? What's my personal best? Like the way the runners thought about it, and like having that be the thing that matters instead of the other people's opinions. You know, I'm a pretty churchy guy, but in the last few years I got really into stoicism too, and
Marcus Aurelius, my
yeah,
favorite.
you
Yeah.
know, Aurelius. I really love Epictetus. You know, and like where he says like, why is it that we all have such a you know we all have such high opinion of our own opinions, except when it comes to ourselves, and then we worry what everybody else's opinion of us is. You know, like I really care what I think the best Jason Bourne movie is, or what I think the best taco shop is. But when it comes to like myself, it's like what does everybody else think about me, right? And I know you weren't saying this exactly, but this is what I got out of it of like this, like basically, I can be happier if I'm worried about my own personal best for myself. That like as Epictetus says, like,
Well, I would say it a
am I
different way
proud of
without
me
without being.
instead of did I engineer someone
I
else's
am.
opinion of me?
I was going to say just I would rather like I'm a human being. I prefer that you like me rather than didn't like me. That'd be great. But if you don't like me, that's okay. And the expression that I didn't have because it's hard to do that in your 20s or 30s and even in your 40s. But as you get in your 50s and now into past 60, it's um whatever your opinion of me is none of my business. Like I'm going to try to, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I'm going to try to be the best person I can be. I'm going to try to have my values, and I'm going to hope that you like me, and I hope we can be friends, and I hope we can do some things together. But if we can't, it's going to be okay. That's your opinion, and not everybody's going to like me, and I'll just have to learn to live with that. That's it's fine. I'm not going to. Oh, let me try. Jess doesn't like me. Let me prove myself to Jess that I'm worthy, or I could be his buddy, or I could be. It just didn't connect, or he did. He just. It was I wasn't his cup of tea, and vice versa. And wish him well.
You know, being able to say that and actually mean that has got to create such inner peace. I mean, I think about, I can't remember which book this is, maybe How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's some Civil War general, I don't know, maybe it was Sherman or somebody, and somebody says, like, what do you think of General Wolfe? And he's like, oh, he's a stand up guy. I like his integrity on this. He's good at this, da da da. And like afterwards, his aide takes him aside, he's like, don't you know he hates you and is like trying to tear you down, like whenever you're not around and talk behind your back? And I don't know if this is Sherman or who it was, but they said, oh, well, they asked my opinion of General Wolf, not his opinion of me.
Um, that's a leader. That's I always think the other thing too is I always think as you get older, vulnerability to me is a strength. It's not a weakness. Not that you're going to be a doormat. I am a I am a I am still more than capable of coming across the table at you and gutting you like a fish if I need to. But I never lead with that move, and I try not to bring that in my arsenal almost ever. But the idea is, I think vulnerability is because everybody's so afraid about getting hurt or looking stupid or looking foolish or the like. I think vulnerability is and creating an environment where people can relax and really get to enjoy each other rather than work in the room or exaggerating who you are or showing up with your representative rather than who you are. You can just be the person you want to be, and that makes it so much better. The other stuff is just so boring or so stiff or so it's like I'm Mark Murphy. Damn glad to meet you, Mark. I'm like it's I mean that's I'd rather stay home than do that.
Yeah, it makes me think, as you say, it makes me think of two things. We've had a lot of guys off the special mission unit that people call Delta Force. Um, and, they're big fans of sayings like quiet professional or like, uh, you know, tread quietly but carry a big stick, right? Um, and uh, and and the but on the other side, like I think about confidence. Like there's this great Michael Jordan interview where they're saying like, "What makes you scared? What makes you scared in a game?" And he's like, "Well, nothing." He's like, "Sure, I'm nervous. Like I want it, I'm anxious. I want it to go well, but I'm not scared because I put in the work ahead of time, and I know I put in the work." So, and it was just this. Anyways, there's this quiet confidence about it that kind of reminded me of what you were saying.
Like you prepare in school when you prepare for a test, get ready for the test. You weren't worried about the test because you'd mastered the material. If it's when you didn't study, you were. you were worried.
Yeah.
No, I think that is profound, Jess. I like that. That's really good.
Philosopher everybody doesn't know about, Michael Jordan. Listen, this has been so fun. What do you want to leave people with today?
Well, first of all, I just want to I want to just uh, give a little gratitude to you. I think you are the best listener I've met in a long, long, long time, and you asked terrific questions. I'd say Joe Rogan, watch out. You're a darn good podcast host, and this was a lot of fun for me, and I just appreciate that. And we'd love the opportunity to continue the conversation with anybody who'd like to keep the conversation going. And I'd be, as I said, I'd be more than happy to get out a copy of my most recent book to anybody, any one of your listeners or people who are viewing this that would like to have a book. And I hope this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship between
Me
us.
too. Bye, everyone.